now there are some things that we haven't fully figured out, and hopefully with today's message from the governor, we will be able to clarify those things and get things completely figured out. We do have 3 people on this session today that are going to help us. We had Angela Berger, who's our board member, and she's going to be taking notes, so hopefully she'll be able to get back on really quick. Otherwise, this should be recorded. So Paula, can you go ahead?
I'm recording it.
You are recording it?
Yeah.
Okay, my little record thing didn't pop up. Oh, there it is now. Okay, I'm going to be facilitating the meeting, and then Paula is going to be here, also here to help answer some of our questions specifically related to safety and health. We only have a really few people on it, so I'm going to give you guys the option when you want to ask questions. You could type it into the message, or go ahead and, since there's really only 2 of you or 3 of you, so you can go ahead and speak out as well, and we'll get those questions answered to the best of our ability. Just please be respectful to each person that is on here. Understand that everyone's going to have questions, and we want to make sure everyone has equal amount of time to go ahead and ask and get their questions answered. To start with, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the process that we did in order to build this roadmap. So this was done in a similar manner as the expansion was done, for those of you who were here at that time. So with guidance from MDH and MDE, we looked at those things, and from that we determined that we needed to break up into task force. So we ended up creating 5 task force. Those task force were made up of parents, they were made up of staff members, and then they were made up of some administrative staff to help do it. We ended up having 5, which were, so we had a technology task force, curriculum instruction, health and safety, HR, and special services. And then what happened was each week, task force met to discuss problems. We looked at surveys, we came up with solutions, and then we made recommendations for each of those categories, which were then sent to the board for approval. From that, we now have our roadmap, which was sent out to all of you. Today, we're going to really be discussing 2 aspects of that roadmap. The first part we'll spend about 15 minutes on is health and screening, and we'll give you a chance to ask questions. And then after that, we're going to move on to our second part, which is going to be about curriculum instruction. And we'll also spend about 15 minutes on that. And then after that, we're just going to have a little open one, a brainstorming, maybe have some questions or suggestions that we don't have figured out yet. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with the health and screening section. So go ahead and either type a question that you have about health and screening into the chat, or feel free to just go ahead and call out your question. Thank you for raising your hand. So if that helps too. Claire?
My question is, the expectation is for parents to screen their children in the morning before coming to school via the silent dismissal app. There's no way that that's going to happen with every parent, right? Like, kids send their kids to school with the flu all the time. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the backup plan when we start getting several kids coming to school who, you know, anecdotally, when we say, hey, did your parents ask you those questions this morning? And they say, well, no. Or my mom gave me, you know, like 6 hours into school, all of a sudden everyone has a fever, right? Because they've had their ibuprofen is worn off. So, like, one of my concerns is I just don't feel like that's the safe. I wish as parents I could trust, right? But I forget things all the time. So what's the backup plan, Paula?
So Claire, what's going to happen is when parents don't ask their kids the questions, I get a report off of silent dismissal every morning. I'm going to be calling all those parents. So if I don't get a report from them, I will pull those kids from class, call the parents, do a screening myself, and send the kid back to class if they meet the criteria. The reasoning for having parents take the responsibility for screening, and I agree, we've all seen that, you know, where kids come to school, they tell us that mom gave me that med this morning, whatever, I had a temp. Because everyone needs to be screened. There is no way that we could, with the staff that we have in the health office, do screening on everyone when they hit the door. There's two reasons why. Sheer numbers. I don't want to put the responsibility on the teachers to be doing all of the screening, because obviously you're there for, obviously you're there for the kids, but you're there to teach and not to screen them for COVID. The other piece is that when they come to the door, and I'm screening them there, if they have it, I'm exposing all of the people that are around the kids. So if I can at least screen out a portion of them, before they come to school, and then have to do secondary screenings on those that we haven't received, that I feel like will reduce the numbers. My hope, and I'm going to give parents grace because I understand that this is going to be different for all of us, but my hope is that it becomes a practice. Now, parents will get a first text with the fill out your daily health check. They will also get a repeat one if we have not received one. So there are some secondary reminders built in there, and I'm hoping that, given the seriousness of the situation with COVID, that parents are going to take this seriously. And I maybe didn't express it as much on the K2 meeting as I did with the meeting yesterday. I asked parents, and Jason's going to be sending out communication to parents about this too, but I asked parents, this is not the year for you to send your children, to have a question of whether or not to send your children to school. Let's have the conversation first before you even send them. I would rather your kid be tardy, and we have a conversation versus you sending someone to school sick. And if I need additional staff to be able to, if we're finding that the numbers are, very significant, then I will get additional staff, and we can look at kind of the plan B. Part of the COVID planning for screening is monitoring the numbers within the school, but also monitoring our process too. And we will certainly make the necessary revisions to the process if it's not working.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Paula, if I can piggyback onto Claire's question, and because I'm old and cynical, what do we do with parents that the kid, exhibits and he needs to be picked up, and they don't come and pick him up? Because we've had parents refuse to come get their kid for behavior issues or whatever until the end of the school day.
No, they will have to be picked up. The kids will, if they're exhibiting symptoms, we'll be separating the health office. There will be a clean side and there'll be a dirty side. So the dirty side will be for kids who are exhibiting symptoms. We are required to isolate those kids, and parents will be called. And if we have to escalate with, them, notifying, if I can't get a hold of a parent, calling the police to have the police go to the house, there will be kind of a next step to that, because we can't keep children in the health office who are sick, because we don't have the ventilation available. They would be exposing everyone in the health office. So if we had to,
I just wanted to ask that to, make sure that was a thought. There was a thought given to that when they decide not to pick their kid up, what we're going to do.
Right. And the other piece is too, the recommendation, if the child is exhibiting symptoms, is that those children are going to get tested. And we're going to be reaching out to the Department of Health. And so there are certainly next steps to that. And we by no means want to have someone who's sick in the health office or in the school exposing everyone else, because it certainly has implications to everyone who's in the building.
So Tiffany wants to know, are there specific masks that we'll have to wear, or any mask? And what is the plan if they don't wear masks?
So we are required to have children 5 and older wear masks. It is, you know, the executive order by the governor. So we in the school are required to wear masks. As part of the directive by the Department of Health and the Department of Education, not only do we have to have our plan in place, but we also have to have someone who's identified as the COVID-19 coordinator. So there will be someone within our staff who will be assigned kind of the role of monitoring how we're doing. Not only looking at our plans and how are we doing with social distancing and cleaning, but also by looking at how are we doing with wearing masks. So, you know, part of the responsibility will be for teachers to make sure that we model those behaviors, but also that we enforce those in our classrooms and in the spaces that we are interacting with other people. So it will be a requirement.
That part I understood. Is it a specific mask? Like I saw in there that you're like every staff is getting 2 masks, and I've bought some fun masks. I've made a few masks. Like, so it's more. Is it a specific mask? Are there consequences for people who are not wearing masks?
Well, so we will have, if someone forgets their mask, we will have a mask for them. So we will have plenty of surgical masks at school. So if they don't have it and they forgot it, which happens, we will provide it for them. And we'd rather have the kids in school and then have to send them home because they don't have a mask. The question around the mask has come up in every session that I've been on. I know that Janelle was talking about working on some revisions to the student handbook as far as uniforms go, as masks are related. I think the messaging that we're hearing is that the masks, similar to how we require kids with their uniform, it is supposed to be, you know, no writing on the mask. It's supposed to be simple, basic mask. It does not have to be uniform colors. The masks the staff are going to be receiving are black. You know, so just really basic masks.
Okay, are there any other questions in regards to health and screening?
Well, I'm going to ask this question. I don't expect you to have an answer, Marcy, necessarily, because Susan didn't have an answer when I talked to her.
Okay.
Maybe you guys talked about it since then. So, like, and I'm gonna, my 6-year-old is on here, the boat, so I might spell something, but let's say I have students in my classroom, right? And one worked DIE, and I get sued because I didn't clean my classroom well enough. And not the school gets sued, right? But I get named in a lawsuit, which means the school insurance doesn't protect me anymore. What's the school doing about that? Or are we all going to need to be taking out umbrella policies on our insurance to cover us if we get named in a lawsuit?
I don't have an answer for lawsuits and that. So that's something that we'll definitely have to look into a little bit more. But we do have plans in place for doing deep cleanings each night, as well as there's plans in place where we're supposed to be having our students clean the classroom throughout the day as well. And
right, but if the teacher is ultimately responsible for keeping their classroom clean and a parent decides that that's the reason their kid got sick, it doesn't matter what we've done, right? Like, they still can do whatever they want to do. And it doesn't matter. My concern isn't whether or not their lawsuit is legitimate, right? If you end up in court or not in court, you're still going to have legal fees. So I just want to know, like, for example, I signed Adeline up for dance. They changed their waiver to include illness and injury, right? Plus, they name, it says in there that the school and staff are, you're waiving liability for the school and staff members by signing up for dance. So for illness and injury, and it always said illness and injury, but they included specifically the phrase and staff members, so that I can't say, okay, I can't sue Waconia Dance Company, but I can sue the teacher.
Okay, so
It's just it's a concern because we're already making a big enough risk by coming back to work. I don't want to be liable if I have to, and I'm happy to clean my classroom, but I do not want to have to worry every single day that I'm liable for some kid getting sick, other than like the emotional heart-wrenchingness of a kid getting sick. The financial burden and the legal fear, it's legitimate.
It is. So what I'm doing is I wrote that down, and that is something that I think that our lawyers need to look at. So I'm going to send this to Jason and have him send that on to the lawyers and see what kind of answer we get. I'm not sure that's something that I have not had in any of my discussions. So I'm really not sure if that was something that was discussed or not. So I'll bring that up.
Well, and I did send it into, like I said, I sent it into the hotline, but I'm just trying to get it into as many people's ears as possible.
Sure.
So that we can have something, because, the other thing is for you, Paula, too, right? Like that's a big responsibility, and we're all not happy, but we're all willing to do what we need to do, but we don't have a teachers union to fight for us. So we need to fight for ourselves.
No, I completely agree. And, we did have some conversation around litigation as we were kind of early on starting to develop our plans. And a lot of the messaging was, if you're following the CDC guidelines and we have a published protocol and we're following our protocol, that's going to support us. But that is not going to mean that, just because we have that parents aren't, if their child were to get sick, that they aren't going to get legal counsel or, because we don't have parents signing any kind of waivers. And I don't know if that discussion has happened in the leadership team. Because I'm not on that, but so I don't know if those discussions. I'm concerned. I'm concerned for myself. I feel confident of the plan that we have. I feel comfortable that we have the right people in place helping us to come up with this plan. I think having the consultants was not only helpful, but really validating that we were on the right track. So I feel good about that, but there is concern because there's a lot of unknown. And so I think getting some clarity around that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know if you discussed this, but how much of the disinfecting that happens in the classroom is the teacher's responsibility?
So in the roadmap, there is the operations section, which starts on page 4, goes into the disinfecting. The classrooms are going to be cleaned every 2 hours. The desks and commonly used surfaces are going to be sprayed down every 2 hours. That will be the responsibility of the teachers to do that in their classroom. In addition, it will be, we're going to be recommending that students do hand hygiene every 2 hours as well, whether that be hand washing in a sink, or if a sink is not available, then having them use hand sanitizer. So, we'll be doing that on a every 2 hour basis. Question came up yesterday that, classes in the, classes are 50 minutes. So, do we have to disinfect in between classes when the kids are switching, in schools of logic and rhetoric? And you will have to disinfect in between classes. So you'll actually not be doing it on a every 2 hour basis. You'll be doing it every 50 minutes. So in between your classes, you'll have to spray down surfaces. And the product that we're using is a quick dry product that covers for COVID-19. So it shouldn't be, it will be a process where you'll just have to spray it down and not have to spray and wipe. So it should be relatively quick. And we have planned to, that first week that we're back to school, we're actually bringing the consultants in, and they're going to talk us through, all the staff talk us through our process for disinfecting so that everyone knows what's expected of them.
So we spent about 15 minutes on health and screening. If we have some time at the end, we can go back to this, but I want to make sure we have enough time to go through our whole agenda. So let's go ahead and move on to curriculum instruction right now, and go ahead and take a minute to either type your question into the chat or to go ahead and raise your hand for a question.
My question is, if we are in distance learning, are teachers in the building or at home?
At this time, we are saying that teachers are going to be in the building.
For all three scenarios then?
Yes.
Okay, what about those staff members, like well, John's got a granddaughter, but every single rest of us on this phone call have Eagle Ridge Academy children.
We're working
So
on.
I don't want special treatment, but I kind of want special treatment, right? Like,
So if we are in a hybrid or we are in a distance learning model, we are required to implement the child care program. So we are in the process of doing that, and it is available for students at Eagle Ridge. So if you are a parent and your child attends here, you'd be able to use it. If your child attends a different school, you'd have to look into either that school or their community. So we're in the process of still building it, as well as providing resources to looking at your own district, because you might want your kids to stay closer to home, and community education centers are also required to implement a child care program.
okay, so I don't need to like go figure out how I'm gonna find a nanny.
No.
Right? Like
Unless you choose
it's okay.
Kurt and I were talking about that too. What do we do with our kids if I have to be in the building and he has to work? And yeah, okay.
Well, we have a child care program. We're just hammering out all the details and figuring all that out. But yep, a child care program similar to what we had in the spring will be provided again.
This is kind of a specific question, but since there's not very many of us on here, hopefully it's okay for me to ask. If we are in a hybrid model and Finn was in the building the whole week, would he be able to get special service, get his special ed minutes then in person? Or are you guys, like, is priority going to be given to some families that have kids who have special ed needs for full time, or is a hybrid not looking at those kids who need consistency for their IEPs?
So that is definitely something for Amber. That would be a question I would really email her. She can better answer that one. I have been part of the technology task force, and then also weekly talking about things that really direct K-5. But as far for the special services, I would really recommend that you email Amber and Devin about that one. So sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
So Mercy, with the child care program, you would have TAs doing the distance learning, similar to what you did before?
All that information is being, we're in the process of trying to figure that all out. We would like to use TAs as not for childcare, but actually there to assist teachers, especially if we are doing especially for a hybrid model. They really need to be there to assist their teachers and do the job that they were hired to do.
But then who would be responsible for our school age children who have to do distance learning?
So Jason and I are working on that plan too, and looking to see one, we're putting it all together, but I already talked to Jason too about the possibility of hiring staff specifically to do the childcare program.
Okay.
It could end up being TAs again and EAs, but I did make the request for hiring people out.
Sure.
So that plan is still.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to Claire said, you know, if we're required to be in the building and we have children that are in School of Grammar who are going to need a little bit more assistance, that we would have someone guiding them through their education needs.
Yes, and just like we did in the spring, we would be providing the distance learning in that childcare program.
Okay.
So yeah, we recognize that parents can't put their kids in childcare all day long and work all day and then come home and try to implement anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of education to them. It's just not, it's not feasible. So it would be very similar to how we ran it in the spring. And we did all that distance learning here.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any other questions in regards to curriculum instruction? Wow, this is an easy group. Okay, so
it doesn't mean I won't be calling you later with questions, Marcy. It just means that in this exact moment, with the little that we know, I don't have a question.
All right, I'll be ready for that. Okay, so we'll go on to our last part, which is just a brainstorming thing, because there's obviously some things that we haven't figured out yet that we'd like, you know, some suggestions on. So specifically like recess, how are we going to do that and maintain social distancing, or anything else that you felt like the documents were missing?
Marcy, when you were, so you were on the technology team, I guess I have a question around the scenarios. What are going to be the indicators for changing from one to the next? Is it case numbers? Because what I'm seeing that just came out from the governor, the leak, is that it's going to be up to the district. So I think that that's one thing that we haven't talked about like in health and safety. What are the metrics that we're going to be looking at to make us dictate when we need to pivot from one model to the next?
So that was kind of that would be really CDC, MDH, and MDE. So so obviously if we have cases coming through our school, that would go through you, Paula, to go ahead and figure that out with MDH and take guidance from them. I know there's so many leaks and there's so many thoughts and ideas about what the governor is going to say. So I guess we really won't know until the governor actually says something.
Right, but I mean, if you could put that in like as a question, because I think that's something we need to think about as a group. Like what are going to be, if the decision is going to be left up to the district to decide what plan we're going to do, hypothetically speaking, because it's kind of looking like that, what measures are we going to be looking at to determine when we need to make a change?
Okay. All right, I noted that question.
Thank
I
you.
can bring that back to the team.
Thanks.
One of my concerns / questions is around teacher burnout, especially with the need for students to be remaining in their cohort groups for the entire school day, and making sure that teachers get a break, right? But also if we're staggering recess and that type of thing, is there going to be how are teachers going to get prep and be able to do any type of collaboration if we're, you know, always have 5 kids in our classroom or whatever it ends up being?
And Janelle and I have been talking specifically about that. Like, how do we avoid that teacher burnout? Especially, I think if we're in like a hybrid situation with having to manage in-person and distance learning, that is definitely one of the things that we are really, really talking about and considering. You will be getting your prep time for sure. That we're guaranteeing. We are trying also to make sure that everybody has recess at the same time. It might look differently. So if we're in a hybrid model, or even if we're in person with people choosing to do distance learning, based on our preliminary numbers, it doesn't look like we're going to have 6 full classes at the school based on the number of people of the families that we're saying from the survey that they would choose distance learning if given the option. So we're looking at, okay, we probably will have like maybe 4 sections of each grade. So one of the ideas that we're thinking about right now is saying, okay, all 4 of those classes can be out at recess at the same time, but in separate designated areas. So there would be 4 different spots on the playground, or in the whole recess area, I should say, not just the playground, where you would say this class is going to play here and this class is going to be here, and then they would rotate throughout the week. So you would still have that recess time to go ahead and collaborate. As well as you get a lunch break, obviously. We guarantee that as well too. We need that. Everyone's going to need that. The kids are going to need that. You're going to need that. So coverage will still be provided for those things.
Well, and I have a feeling that we're going to be operating for a lot of, at least this first semester, in a hybrid, right? Like, so I think as a teacher, as a parent, you know, it's like, great, I want my kid to be in school, but as a teacher, that's the scariest model because it's so much work, right? So much work. And there's a lot of pressure to keep kids at the same place so that they can come in and out. So I guess my other question is, or maybe it's a suggestion, teachers carry a lot of pressure with curriculum and to get curriculum in and to do the right thing with curriculum. So my suggestion is to be explicit about grace and just to be very explicit about it and say, we do not expect you to work through your curriculum at the same pace that you would on a normal school year. Because
yeah, and that's,
but it needs to be explicit. We can't assume that teachers know that, right? We have to say those words to our teachers.
and I think we said that a lot in the spring too, like, this is just what it is. And so, like you, hybrid is the one that I think is the most difficult. Like, that's the one when I think about it too, it's the hardest one for me to wrap my brain around. So I've been, over these past couple of weeks, been researching hybrid. I've attended a few webinars about how to do it. And so during that process, I have been putting together just like a little cheat sheet for me, figuring out what's the best way to do it. What are items that we should teach online versus what are things that should be in face? How do I blend the two? For 6-12, it's a little bit easier because they're going to be doing live streaming. So it's not going to be as different for them. For K-5, we're still trying to figure that out. Doing live stream might work for 4-5, but maybe not the best thing for K-3. I mean, it's definitely not for K-2. Probably not the best thing to have a kindergartner sitting on a screen staring at people, for 6 hours of the day. We recognize that. So K-5 definitely has different challenges. So how do we give strategies to teachers on how do you run both without without doing that burnout? So that's been my research over these past couple of weeks, is trying to find those tips and those ideas about how to do that. And then that would be something we would share with teachers to hopefully avoid that burnout. So, honestly, a lot of it is probably going to be also a trial and error. So since this is new to every single one of us, going into a hybrid, we are going to make mistakes. And we just have to give ourselves grace to make those mistakes, but hopefully learn from those mistakes. And I could see you saying, well, I'm going to try this because this is what I've heard and it seemed to be good. And it might be fabulous. Or you might go, all right, I don't know what I was thinking when I implemented that. And that's just going to be the reality of it. We're going to make mistakes and we have to be okay with that. Are there any other concerns, suggestions, recommendations in regards to the roadmap plan? Or anything else that you noticed that we might have left out?
Not that I can think of now, but that doesn't mean I won't have more questions later.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So there is a COVID-19 hotline that you can email. So it's COVID/19 COVID-19. I could put it in the chat at eagleridgeacademy.org. Oh, thanks, Claire. So that would be the best place to go ahead and pose any questions. And yeah, we understand that sometimes, you know, you don't have it in the moment, and then later on as you're thinking about something, a question pops up. So please use that hotline. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for attending the feedback session and offering your questions and your ideas. We'll go ahead and end it early. I hope that's okay with everyone since nobody had any more questions. And you all have a wonderful day.
Marcy, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about this, but the parents will have to do the health screenings, but all of the staff will be required to do the same. So I will be, if I don't receive your health screen, I will be reaching out to you. So that will be a requirement that you do that every day as well.
Will we also be receiving that text?
Yes, you will.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Will ours be in silent dismissal as well, or how will ours go through?
So yours will be, so silent dismissal, the privileges will be changed in silent dismissal. So the only people that will see the health screening reports will be me. So I'll be able to run a report, and based off of that, I can reach out.
So my question is, how as a staff will I be doing my screening? Is it also in silent dismissal like the students?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So you'll have an account. They're going to be setting up accounts for teachers, for staff. And so it's a really slick, unfortunately, we really wanted to have it here for people to kind of see, and we wanted to test it. It's just finished now, so we're going to start testing it. But everything will be kind of, all the information that will be in there, especially like for those of us that have kids. Like if you have, 2 or 3 kids, you will get one text. All your children's information will be in there, and you will have to answer the questions separately for your kids, but you're only going to have like one session that you need to do. But then you'll get a separate text for your own. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Paula.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Bye.